The galaxy had always regarded Earth as little more than a curiosity. Among the countless inhabited systems, it had never been a center of commerce, a military power, or a diplomatic hub. Its people were seen as clever in small ways, inventive perhaps in science and technology, but limited by gravity-bound thinking, planetary politics, and the confines of an unremarkable solar system. They were a footnote in the annals of galactic history, a species that could be observed and dismissed without consequence. The Council of Stellar Powers, a coalition of empires who prided themselves on centuries of dominance, had not considered the possibility that Earth might ever rise to prominence. And so, when the fleets arrived, it was with the complete certainty of conquerors, assured of their inevitable victory. Massive warships tore through subspace corridors, emerging into the Sol system like predatory shadows over a quiet village. The hulls of these vessels were so immense that they blotted out entire constellations when seen from Earth's orbit. Energy signatures lit up the system's sensors like a storm of unnatural stars, warning of the devastation to come. Their purpose was clear: domination, conquest, and subjugation. And yet, as the invaders approached, humanity did not scramble fleets, fire orbital defenses, or make any move toward confrontation. They did not signal surrender, nor did they panic. They simply watched. From the quiet of observation posts, planetary outposts, and hidden orbital stations, humans studied the incoming ships with meticulous care. Every weapon, every shield frequency, every flight pattern was recorded and analyzed. Every commander, engineer, and tactician knew that the galaxy's most powerful fleets had arrived, but no panic stirred in the human heart. The invaders, emboldened by centuries of unchallenged dominance, broadcast their demands with the flourish and arrogance of victors. Cities were ordered to submit, communication systems were commandeered, and key government buildings were claimed as the new seats of authority. Military garrisons were quickly neutralized or integrated into the alien hierarchy, while civilians were conscripted to perform labor that would fuel the conqueror's industrial machinery. From orbiting platforms and hovering command ships, alien leaders issued proclamations that Earth was now theirs, declaring new governors and assigning territories among their vassals. In every sense of the word, humanity was conquered. Or so it appeared. Despite the overwhelming display of power, humanity's silence remained unbroken. No desperate messages were sent for aid. No rebellious forces rose to meet the invaders in open battle. Human leaders, scientists, and strategists understood something the conquerors did not. Domination is not merely about force. It is about perception, preparation, and patience. By submitting outwardly, humans gained freedom to observe, to learn, and to manipulate systems that the aliens assumed were under their control. Engineers and scientists integrated themselves into the alien administrative networks, laboring under the guise of compliance while subtly modifying systems, calibrating energy flows, and mapping the weaknesses inherent in alien technology. Every touchpoint humans had with the occupiers was an opportunity to sow invisible influence, to gather intelligence, and to prepare the world for a moment the galaxy had never imagined. Time passed, and the conquerors grew complacent. Months stretched into years. The humans worked with a level of efficiency and compliance that impressed their oppressors, reinforcing the belief that Earth had been broken, its spirit subdued. The aliens praised human productivity, rewarding obedience and celebrating the apparent success of occupation. To the galaxy at large, Earth had fallen completely. Its people were compliant, its systems under alien authority, and its fate secured. Yet, under the surface, humanity orchestrated every detail of its survival and eventual supremacy. They reconfigured factories to optimize production, enhanced logistics in ways invisible to alien oversight, and embedded redundancies into every system that allowed for the quiet manipulation of outcomes. Even as the conquerors paraded their triumph, humans were mastering control from within. They adapted energy grids, realigned communication networks, and synchronized orbital defenses in ways that the invaders could not detect. Every infrastructure improvement served dual purposes: immediate productivity and preparation for eventual reclamation. Schools, laboratories, and industries became training grounds for a generation of humans who would one day operate the planet not as subjects but as stewards of ultimate control. Fleet movements, planetary defenses, and administrative protocols were subtly altered to allow for maximum efficiency when the moment came. Yet each alteration was disguised as simple obedience. Pilots, engineers, and administrators observed anomalies in alien systems that they could not explain. Ships occasionally executed maneuvers with inexplicable efficiency. Supply chains rerouted themselves in ways that benefited human operators. Communication arrays delivered messages faster and more securely than anticipated. The humans noted these anomalies, learning from them, integrating them, and ensuring that every alien advantage became an opportunity for human leverage. Earth was conquered, yes, but it was also quietly becoming a fortress, an unseen hub of control. Each day of apparent compliance was a day of preparation for the ultimate reversal. The invaders, confident in their mastery, never suspected the depth of human strategy. They saw obedience, not awareness. They saw labor, not manipulation. They saw surrender, not sovereignty. Humanity's patience was absolute. Their minds worked tirelessly, connecting threads invisible to the alien eye, creating a network of influence that would one day turn subjugation into authority. Every city, every orbital station, every system under alien control became a conduit for human ingenuity. The conquerors believed themselves masters, yet unknowingly they had opened the doors to their own subjugation. And in the quiet observation of it all, humanity waited. They had not resisted, they had not revolted, they had not even made their intentions known. They simply endured, learned, and prepared, understanding a truth the galaxy had yet to grasp. Power is not measured in weapons, fleets, or occupied territories. True power lies in inevitability, in patience, in the capacity to turn apparent defeat into absolute control. The conquerors believed Earth had been claimed. Humanity knew that the first move in the greatest conquest the galaxy had ever witnessed had already been made. In the vast silence of their laboratories, in the unassuming routines of ordinary citizens, in the quiet operations of orbital observation stations, humans built their future. Every observation of alien weaknesses, every subtle manipulation of systems, and every unnoticed optimization was a step toward inevitability. Earth, conquered in appearance, was transforming into the ultimate seat of authority. The galaxy might believe that it had prevailed, but it had underestimated humanity's greatest weapon, their capacity to endure, to learn, and to turn compliance into absolute dominion. By the time the first wave of alien forces settled into permanent occupation, the seeds of reversal were fully planted. Humanity had watched, studied, and adapted. They had turned apparent weakness into preparation, servitude into strategy, and patience into power. The conquerors thought they had subdued a planet. Humanity knew they had laid the foundation to conquer the galaxy itself. And so, under the watchful eyes of the invaders, the quiet work continued, silent, invisible, and unstoppable. For in every act of obedience, every gesture of compliance, humanity was not surrendering. They were preparing to reclaim, not just Earth, but the stars themselves. Years passed, and the galaxy's attention began to fade from Earth. The conquerors, confident in their triumph, treated the planet as a well-ordered colony. Their fleets patrolled the skies with ease, military governors administered cities, and bureaucrats ensured compliance at every level. Human labor continued with precision. Engineers, scientists, and administrators executed every order without complaint, and the occupiers saw only the face of obedience. Yet beneath the veneer of submission, humanity's quiet dominion was growing, shaping the systems of their conquerors with subtle genius. Every day, humans transformed alien infrastructure, turning instruments of control into mechanisms of influence, all while remaining invisible in the eyes of the galaxy. Factories designed to produce war machinery were modified to improve efficiency, not for the benefit of the aliens, but to allow humans to manipulate supply lines, reserve resources, and redirect energy in ways that would later prove decisive. Each conveyor belt, energy conduit, and data terminal was analyzed, optimized, and subtly altered to allow for rapid control without detection. The conquerors praised the humans for their industriousness, believing their success was due to compliance and diligence. They were blind to the deeper reality. Humanity's apparent obedience was a carefully orchestrated performance, a rehearsal for a power they would never recognize until it was too late. The citizens of Earth were trained in ways the aliens could not perceive. Engineers learned to exploit the smallest weaknesses in the conquerors' designs. Scientists developed contingency plans embedded within ordinary research. And administrators orchestrated networks of influence that connected every sector of the occupied planet. Even the youngest students, seemingly innocent, were instructed in problem-solving, resilience, and subtle strategy, creating a generation capable of thinking several steps ahead of their oppressors. From the surface to the orbiting stations, every human acted with purpose, whether moving crates, repairing machinery, or recording data. Their labor became the quiet engine of dominion, a network that would soon extend far beyond the planet itself. Fleet operations provided another arena for human mastery. The conquerors maintained a constant presence in orbit, assuming that humans lacked the technology or skill to interfere. And yet, every ship, every orbital platform, and every communication array was subtly influenced by human operators. Navigation systems were reprogrammed to allow for contingency maneuvers in emergencies. Energy distributions were rerouted to prioritize rapid defense, and communication networks were subtly adjusted to allow humans to maintain oversight without detection. In times of crisis, fleets that should have been helpless became instruments of flawless coordination, executing strategies humans had quietly embedded into their operations years before. The alien governors believed they were in control, yet every policy, every initiative, every system improvement had been quietly guided by human hands. Resource allocation, industrial priorities, and even defense strategies were influenced to benefit humanity. The invaders' own structures of power became conduits for human planning. When a crisis arose, an unexpected solar flare, a supply chain disruption, or a malfunctioning orbital station, humans were already prepared. Systems adapted in ways the conquerors could not comprehend, responding automatically to threats in the precise manner humans had anticipated. What appeared to be luck or coincidence was, in reality, the product of meticulous observation and preparation spanning years. Humanity's reach extended beyond Earth's orbit. Communications with other occupied systems were subtly monitored and managed, ensuring that the conquerors' fleets remained dependent on human oversight. Attempted expansions into neighboring territories were delayed or rerouted through human-managed protocols, allowing Earth's silent influence to grow. Every alien victory, every apparent success in governance was underpinned by human control. No fleet moved, No installation operated, and no logistical chain functioned independently of human planning. The conquerors believed themselves masters, yet they were now instruments of the very species they had sought to dominate. Alien intelligence analysts began to notice anomalies, though they could not understand their significance. Ships rerouted automatically, supply deliveries arrived before they were requested, and communication delays seemed to disappear without explanation. Conquerors attributed these events to glitches or extraordinary efficiency, unaware that humans had built contingency layers into every system. Humans had become indispensable, not by rebellion or force, but by turning servitude into absolute control. Their mastery was subtle, invisible, and unassailable, rooted in patient observation, strategic foresight, and quiet ingenuity. Diplomacy and administration were equally affected. Humans embedded influence into negotiations, subtly adjusting outcomes without raising suspicion. Disputes between alien factions were mediated indirectly by systems humans controlled, ensuring that Earth remained secure while alien agendas clashed in ways that served human interests. Every treaty signed, every decree issued, and every fleet maneuver executed was silently aligned with human objectives. The conquerors believed their dominance was unquestioned, yet they were now operating within a framework of human orchestration they could not perceive. And still, humanity did not reveal its power. There were no open acts of defiance, no displays of superiority, no rebellions to declare dominance. Compliance remained the mask beneath which the quiet dominion was built. Every day, humans observed, adapted, and prepared, turning every opportunity into leverage. The conquerors' confidence, their pride, and their arrogance became tools for humans, providing the perfect environment for the ultimate inversion of power. As decades passed, humans perfected their methods. Supply chains could operate independently while remaining fully under human oversight. Fleets could act as extensions of human strategy, and communication networks became instruments for coordinating complex operations across the planet and beyond. Occupation had become a training ground for mastery. Every obstacle, every command, every task imposed by the conquerors was used to refine systems of influence, creating a planetary network of control invisible to all but its operators. By the time external threats began to loom on the horizon, humanity was ready. They had turned the conquerors' presence into the mechanism of their own dominion. Fleets, orbital platforms, and industrial centers all responded to human oversight, executing contingency plans crafted over decades. The galaxy's most powerful empires had arrived to conquer Earth, and yet Earth, seemingly powerless, had become the quiet heart of inevitability. The humans had transformed obedience into authority, servitude into strategy, and patience into power. The conquerors, still confident in their supremacy, could not see the subtle web of control the humans had woven. Every system, every network, every mechanism of governance had been adapted to align with human intent. The galaxy believed that Earth had been conquered, but in reality, humanity had conquered the conquerors. The first wave of dominance was complete, not with fire or fleets, but with foresight, patience, and unyielding intelligence. And in that silence, in the quiet labor of millions of humans, the stage was set for the greatest reversal the galaxy had ever witnessed. The galaxy's first real test of humanity's hidden dominion arrived without warning. A coalition of hostile civilizations, pirates, marauders, and rival empires sought to seize Earth, expecting a swift and decisive victory. The conquerors, confident in their authority and technology, led the charge, anticipating an easy triumph over a supposedly submissive species. But the moment the fleets engaged, the illusion of control shattered. Ships that should have faltered, defenses that should have failed, and supply lines that should have collapsed instead operated with uncanny precision. Systems, seemingly automated, responded with perfect foresight. What the invaders perceived as extraordinary luck was, in truth, the result of decades of human preparation, embedded subtly within every mechanism of control they had assumed to be theirs. From Earth's command centers, human strategists observed the approaching fleets like a master chess player studying pawns, unaware of their place on the board. Energy shields calibrated automatically to the precise frequency needed to deflect incoming plasma salvos. Defense grids activated in sequences that maximized efficiency and minimized damage. Orbital fleets maneuvered with flawless timing, intercepting threats before they even reached the planet's atmosphere. And all of it happened without any overt command from human hands, because the humans had anticipated every contingency years ago, embedding these responses into systems the conquerors trusted as their own. The alien commanders initially believed the anomalies were accidental, fleets reacting to unseen tactical variables, automated defenses overperforming, or sheer coincidence. Yet as each attack was neutralized with increasing efficiency, doubt began to creep into their ranks. Every raid, every skirmish, every surprise assault ended not with destruction, but with the aliens realizing that they were fighting not a conquered species, but a silent, omnipresent force controlling the very systems they had taken for granted. Their triumphs, once assumed to be victories of power and technology, were revealed to be instruments of human design, executed without conscious input by those they had thought subjugated. Communication networks offered yet another revelation. Intercepted transmissions from hostile forces were rerouted, delayed, or altered in subtle ways that ensured strategic advantages for humans. The conquerors, unaware of this manipulation, found their own forces moving according to strategies that seemed inexplicably aligned against them. Commanders sent orders that conflicted with hidden human protocols, only to find their instructions overridden by automatic sequences they did not understand. Entire campaigns faltered, not because of incompetence or courage, but because humans had subtly designed the infrastructure to prevent alien errors from harming Earth or its interests. On the ground, the effects were equally profound. Human workers, scientists, and engineers continued to labor under the guise of compliance, yet each action contributed to a larger, invisible orchestration of outcomes. Factories produced weapons, materials, and components at optimal efficiency, while energy grids redistributed power to protect key installations without alerting the aliens. Civilian infrastructure, roads, transport hubs, and communication centers acted as silent defensive networks, capable of rerouting supplies, isolating threats, and coordinating logistics with military precision. The planet itself had become a fortress of inevitability, and its guardians were unseen. Alien scholars and strategists began to notice patterns that defied logic. Fleet movements were unexpectedly synchronized. Resource allocation was optimized beyond the apparent capacity of human operators, and operational errors that should have crippled the invaders were systematically nullified. Attempts to understand these anomalies only revealed deeper complexity, layers of contingency and control that no alien mind could fully penetrate. Humanity had transformed occupation into a network of control, turning the conquerors' own systems into instruments of strategic advantage. As news of Earth's unexpected defense spread across the galaxy, whispers of a subjugated planet that ruled its conquerors began to circulate. Other civilizations attempted to study the anomalies, only to encounter systems so complex, so deeply interwoven with human ingenuity, that comprehension became impossible. Analysts spoke of networks that adapted faster than any known intelligence, of logistical chains that anticipated threats before they emerged, and of communication arrays that acted with predictive precision. Humanity's power was not measured in fleets, weapons, or territorial control. It was measured in inevitability.
Where the conquerors had assumed obedience, humans had established control. Where the galaxy had seen submission, humans had built supremacy. The turning point arrived when a particularly massive assault targeted a human city defended by a mixture of alien and human forces. Lasers, missiles, and boarding vessels assaulted the city with overwhelming force, yet not a single structure was lost. Defensive systems deployed automatically, countermeasures neutralized every threat, and reinforcements arrived precisely when needed, often from locations the invaders assumed were inaccessible. Alien commanders were forced to admit that their own systems were failing in inexplicable ways. Entire fleets acted in accordance with human designs, performing maneuvers that had been subtly programmed into their operations. The conquerors had been reduced to instruments of a species they had thought dominated and inferior. Even in diplomacy, humanity's influence became undeniable. Treaties and negotiations between alien powers were quietly steered to favor human interests, using networks and systems that the invaders trusted as neutral. Disputes were resolved in ways that ensured Earth's advantage, yet no alien suspected intervention. Policies, alliances, and military campaigns were subtly guided, demonstrating that power did not require confrontation. It required control over the mechanisms of action itself. Humans had learned to govern without authority, to dominate without conflict, and to command without revealing their hand. The galaxy was beginning to understand, though slowly, that Earth's apparent weakness was a mask for unmatched capability. The conquerors' arrogance had blinded them to the truth. Their empire relied on the systems humans had infiltrated, optimized, and controlled. Every success the aliens celebrated, every campaign they won, every colony they stabilized was, in fact, a human victory executed invisibly through the infrastructure of obedience. Earth had transformed from a conquered planet into the invisible architect of the galaxy's events, and the first hints of recognition began to stir fear and awe in the minds of those who had thought themselves supreme. And through it all, humanity remained silent. The world appeared obedient, the people industrious but powerless, yet every system, every fleet, every mechanism of the conqueror's rule operated under human influence. The invaders believed they were masters. In reality, they were servants, executing the will of a species they had sought to dominate. The revelation of this power was not immediate, not dramatic, but unstoppable, unfolding quietly across systems, fleets, and territories, until the galaxy would finally understand Earth was never conquered. Humanity had already begun to conquer the universe, invisibly, inexorably, and with the precision of minds that thought generations ahead. By the time the first signs of overt action appeared, the galaxy's empires were already ensnared in a network of human influence so profound that their own fleets, governments, and bureaucracies had become extensions of Earth's will. What had once been a planet under occupation had evolved into a force that shaped the destinies of worlds, all while remaining seemingly compliant. The conquerors had unknowingly ceded autonomy over their systems to the very species they had thought broken, and humanity, patient and meticulous, was ready to move from invisibility to ascendance. The first overt display came not with a declaration of war, nor with the assault of a massive fleet, but with the subtle manipulation of supply lines and fleet deployments across key sectors of the galaxy. Alien powers attempting to expand their influence into neutral systems suddenly found their resources redirected, their reinforcements delayed, and their communications scrambled in ways that seemed impossible for human operators. Entire campaigns collapsed because the infrastructure that supported them had been quietly realigned by human hands. When questioned, alien commanders could not identify any single source of error. They could only watch as the fabric of their plans unraveled, precisely according to human design. Humanity's power manifested across multiple arenas simultaneously. Orbital platforms, once under alien control, now operated with autonomous precision, reinforcing vulnerable sectors and countering threats before the invaders could respond. Human administrators, disguised as compliant laborers or advisors, had embedded protocols into every system they touched: energy grids, communication networks, logistics chains, and fleet navigation routines, all calibrated to act in the service of Earth's interests. Even the invaders' most sophisticated AI systems were subverted, their predictive algorithms co-opted by the humans' invisible hand. It was a dominion of foresight, patience, and perfect calculation, unfolding silently but with inexorable force. The turning point came when the first fleet of humans' own design emerged from deep orbit. These were not ships of intimidation, but instruments of precision. Silent, efficient, and utterly coordinated, they moved as one across the void, simultaneously reinforcing weak points, intercepting hostile maneuvers, and establishing control over critical star systems. Alien observers, accustomed to seeing humanity as a minor player, were struck dumb by the sudden emergence of a force that operated with near omniscience, anticipating every move, neutralizing every threat, and doing so with surgical efficiency. For every ship the conquerors deployed, humans had already accounted for contingencies. For every system they occupied, humans had already mapped vulnerabilities and prepared responses. In the midst of this ascendance, humanity did not strike indiscriminately. Their actions were calculated, precise, and deeply strategic. Civilian populations were spared, resources were protected, and the conquerors' own forces were often redirected to perform functions they could not comprehend. The humans' advantage lay not in firepower alone, but in the control of the battlefield itself. The ability to predict, manipulate, and redirect events without the galaxy even realizing it. Entire fleets were neutralized not by combat, but by systems the humans had subtly adjusted, turning weapons, shields, and navigation protocols against their operators in moments of critical failure. What appeared as sudden disaster to the invaders was the careful orchestration of a species that had spent decades learning, observing, and preparing. As these events unfolded, the conquerors began to sense a terrifying truth. They were no longer in control. Their bureaucracies, military commands, and technological networks were being manipulated with flawless precision. Even the most cunning generals and strategists could not discern the source of their failures. Every decision they made was anticipated, every maneuver countered, and every advantage nullified. Humanity had turned compliance into dominion, obedience into power, and patience into absolute authority. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations realized too late that they were operating within a framework they did not understand, one carefully crafted to serve the will of a species they had long underestimated. This ascendancy extended beyond military operations. Trade routes, planetary administrations, and interstellar logistics networks fell under subtle human guidance. Star systems previously independent or allied with the conquerors were quietly influenced, aligned, or neutralized through human intervention. Diplomacy, too, was controlled. Treaties and agreements were subtly modified to favor humanity, and disputes between alien factions were resolved in ways that maintained Earth's strategic advantage. The galaxy's perception of humanity shifted from insignificant to omnipresent. A species once considered weak and compliant had become the unseen architect of galactic events, and the conqueror's pride only deepened their vulnerability. Even the alien council, which had once mocked Earth's resilience, now found itself in awe and fear. They could not comprehend how a planet could coordinate defenses, manipulate fleets, and influence the outcomes of interstellar conflicts without revealing its hand. Reports of battles lost without engagement, supply lines rerouted without explanation, and fleets incapacitated without confrontation spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity's dominion was absolute, yet invisible, a silent assertion of power so complete that the very concept of rebellion had been nullified before it could arise. Humanity's patience had created inevitability. Every system, every fleet, and every network operated under unseen guidance, turning every advantage the invaders had into a liability. The conquerors were masters only in perception. In reality, they were cogs in a machine designed by a species they believed subjugated. And when humanity finally revealed its strength, it would not be as a conquering force. It would be as a natural consequence of strategy, preparation, and the inescapable intelligence of a species that had long observed and silently outmaneuvered the galaxy. In orbit and on the surface, humans prepared for the final stage. Orbital weapons, fleet reinforcements, and planetary defenses remained in place, hidden under layers of redundancy and invisible design. Civilian populations continued their daily lives, unaware of the full scale of the invisible dominion being orchestrated around them. Humanity had become a living network of inevitability, everywhere yet nowhere, present yet undetected, preparing to assert its authority not with chaos, but with precision. The conquerors, once arrogantly certain of their mastery, now faced a truth that shook their confidence to its core. Every plan they executed, every campaign they waged, every victory they claimed, had been subtly anticipated and neutralized by a species they had assumed broken. Humanity's ascendancy was no longer potential, it was manifest. The galaxy had not seen rebellion, nor a display of overwhelming firepower. What it saw instead was the quiet, inevitable orchestration of a species whose patience, ingenuity, and intellect had turned servitude into supremacy. Humanity waited, as always, for the moment that would reveal the full extent of its dominion. When that moment arrived, the galaxy would understand that the conquerors had never truly ruled, that every ship, every installation, and every operation was now, and had always been, under the unseen guidance of a species they had mocked and underestimated. And when that realization came, it would not be with negotiation or surrender. It would be with inevitability, precision, and the undeniable authority of humans who had waited centuries to demonstrate that true power lies not in what is seen, but in what is controlled. The final moment arrived, not with warning, not with hesitation, and certainly not with negotiation. Humanity, having spent generations preparing, watching, and subtly controlling the mechanisms of conquest, was ready to move from invisible dominion to undeniable authority. The galaxy's conquerors, confident in their unbroken supremacy, had no understanding of the scale or depth of the network that now governed every system they thought under their command. The fleets that had once patrolled the stars with pride were already caught in human calculations, their maneuvers anticipated, their strengths neutralized, their weaknesses exploited with precision they could never have imagined. It began with a signal, subtle yet impossible to ignore. Across every occupied system, every fleet, and every communication array, a single human transmission resonated, a call that was both a warning and an announcement. It was not shouted, it was not aggressive, it was simply the manifestation of inevitability. Alien command centers scrambled to respond, but their orders were rendered moot by automated systems they did not control. Energy grids, weapon arrays, defensive shields, and navigation networks all responded according to protocols embedded by human hands decades before. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations had been rendered incapable of coordinating against what they assumed were inferior minds. Humanity had seized control not by conquest in the traditional sense, but by turning the invaders' own systems into instruments of human strategy.
As orbital platforms activated and fleets realigned, the conquerors realized the terrifying truth. Their actions were no longer their own. Ships attempted evasive maneuvers, but navigation systems guided them into choke points designed for maximum containment. Weapons fired, but defensive grids absorbed or redirected every strike with perfect efficiency. Communication attempts failed, rerouted into human-controlled channels that rendered every command useless. Panic spread like wildfire as the invaders' confidence shattered, their pride crumbling under the invisible weight of human dominion. Where they had assumed weakness, there was inevitability. Where they had believed compliance, there was mastery. Humanity had waited, and now the galaxy was witnessing the full expression of that patience. On the surface of Earth, the people moved with the calm authority of those who had always known the outcome. Civilian populations carried on, their daily lives uninterrupted. Yet every system around them, every power plant, transport network, and orbital monitoring station acted as an extension of human will. Fleet operations, planetary defenses, and interstellar logistics all responded flawlessly, executing centuries of contingency planning with a precision that no alien mind could comprehend. Humanity had built a dominion so complete, so integrated into the mechanisms of governance, warfare, and logistics that rebellion against it was impossible. The conqueror's own empire had become the framework of human victory. The galaxy watched in awe and horror as what had been assumed to be a conquered world revealed its true power. Entire fleets of aliens were immobilized without a single shot fired. Colonies loyal to the invaders found their supply lines redirected, communications severed, and defenses neutralized in ways they could neither anticipate nor understand. Planetary governors, bureaucrats, and generals all realized simultaneously that the humans they had oppressed had become architects of every failure, every misstep, and every loss. What was invisible had become unstoppable. What was underestimated had become supreme. Humanity's response was deliberate, not vengeful. It was a reclamation of justice, a demonstration of foresight, and an exercise in absolute authority. Strategic points across the galaxy were secured without unnecessary destruction, and hostile forces were neutralized with precision that minimized collateral damage. Ships that had once threatened Earth were now isolated, incapacitated, or repurposed under human control. The conqueror's infrastructure, long thought invulnerable, now served as the scaffolding of a new order, one in which humanity dictated terms not by brute force alone, but through mastery of intelligence, strategy, and systems. Alien rulers attempted desperate negotiations, but the humans had already anticipated every plea, every tactic, and every form of resistance. Diplomatic envoys were routed into controlled channels. Treaties and agreements were rewritten automatically to favor human oversight. Even the most cunning alien schemers found themselves operating within constraints they could not perceive, their decisions rendered meaningless by the web of contingency that humanity had woven over decades. Where they expected rebellion, they found inevitability. Where they anticipated weakness, they found authority. Humanity's dominion was absolute, and it was visible at last. In the final engagements, entire alien fleets were immobilized in orbit, their weapons silenced, their shields rendered irrelevant, their leaders paralyzed by systems they could no longer control. The invaders' own technology became a testament to human ingenuity.
a monument to the patience and planning that had turned subjugation into supremacy. Across the galaxy, reports streamed in. Colonies and fleets formerly under alien command were now operating according to human strategy, simultaneously safe, productive, and under the quiet authority of a species they had mocked for centuries. The conquerors realized, finally, that they had not lost battles. They had lost the framework upon which their power depended.
The revelation rippled across interstellar civilizations. For the first time, the galaxy understood that humanity had never been weak, had never been broken, and had never been merely a planetary species. Humanity's patience, intelligence, and unyielding preparation had transformed what appeared to be compliance into absolute dominion. The conquerors were humbled, not merely by force, but by strategy, foresight, and the silent orchestration of systems they had never understood. Humanity had conquered without conquest, dominated without aggression, and mastered the galaxy without revealing the full scope of its power, until the moment of reckoning arrived. And as silence fell across the stars, a new order emerged. The galaxy that had once ridiculed Earth now operated under its guidance. Fleets, colonies, and administrations all responding to the invisible hand of a species they had once thought broken. Humanity had become the architects of inevitability, the arbiters of consequence, and the masters of systems so complex, so pervasive, that no empire could challenge them without succumbing to the very networks humans had created. The conquerors had been transformed into servants, not through chains, but through the unassailable genius of patience, strategy, and foresight. In the end, humanity did not destroy the galaxy, nor did it subjugate it through brute force. It had done something far more profound. It had taken a universe that had mocked its silence, that had assumed its weakness, and reshaped it according to principles of intelligence, inevitability, and mastery. The conqueror's stars no longer shone in defiance. They had become part of the great pattern orchestrated by Earth. Humanity's silence had been the prelude to creation, their patience the architect of authority, and their genius the force that ensured the galaxy itself would never again doubt the might, wisdom, and inevitability of the human spirit. The galaxy had challenged humanity. The galaxy had assumed victory. And in the end, the galaxy bowed, not because of violence alone, but because of a species that had mastered time, systems, and strategy so completely that its dominion was absolute, inevitable, and eternal. Earth had been conquered in appearance, but in reality, humanity had ruled from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal that true power lies not in strength alone, but in intelligence, patience, and the unyielding capacity to turn compliance into supreme authority. Humanity's rise was complete. The galaxy's conquerors had learned a truth that would echo through millennia. Underestimate humanity, and the stars themselves may bend to its will.